Hello, welcome to Liberty Conversations, episode 18. I'm Rob Duff, joined by Noel
Hey,
Kenny, both pastors in Liberty Church. And sorry, I cut across you there. Say hello.
hello.
uh, yeah, the aim of this podcast, is just to have conversations around the things that matter in life. What it looks like to follow Jesus, what it looks like to practice His ways. Um, in everyday life. Yeah. So today we're going to talk around. We have this topic of just this question: why are we all so exhausted? Right. So that's what we're going to ask. And looking at the screen, I don't know if we're the most credible people to answer that with the big bags under my eyes. I can see there, and you look good. You've got the lighting going on well there. That you
Yeah,
don't look that tired, but I
and
feel it.
and and I just moisturised.
And it is moisturize. Yeah, I'm missing that. I need a skincare routine. The answer: this episode sponsored by Nivea for Men. Yeah. But how are you, man? You looking forward to the
just,
football tonight? There's a big match
just a
tonight, isn't
minute.
there?
I know I have my prayer meeting in Bray tonight, so
Oh, dear.
I'm committed. I'm like,
Oh, there's the
so
test.
what I was thinking of, right, is 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 it like a two leg thing? Is it?
Oh, I think it's a knockout thing, is it not? As far as I know. Well, I don't know.
Oh,
Look,
so
I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm not a big
no, I should
In
know.
fact,
I'm a football guy, but I thought there was like one tonight, and then there's another one on Tuesday. But I don't know where I pulled that out of. I thought there was
oh,
one in their ground and then one in air ground. But
I don't know. From what I read, it was like a knockout thing. And even the country, I didn't even know. What's it like? Czechia? I didn't know that was like. I was like, Czechia, they're spelling that wrong. It turns out it's the Czech Republic, right? But that's the old name for it. But I didn't. I'd never heard that word before. I thought it
I
was
was the
misspelled.
same. I was
I,
like, I had to look her up. I was like, Czechia,
I was in
like,
Prague, and no, it's 20 years ago. I was in Prague, so maybe since then they've changed the name. But it's the first time I came across it, like so.
wow, yeah,
But yeah, I went to a match. I went to a match last week, and I was telling you, I went to a Bows match for the first time, first ever League of Ireland game. I've been to Ireland games and stuff before, international games. But I tell you, it was some experience, man. Never been in Dalymount. Do you know? I never even saw Dalymount Park. I used to go to college in DCU, and you pass that shopping centre in Phibsborough all the time. I never lifted my eyes above it. You can see the big floodlights,
yeah,
like
yeah.
right above it. The guy I was with, Josh, told me that they used to be the floodlights from Highbury, from Arsenal's old ground, and Arsenal donated them when they did up their ground, which is mad.
Wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it was some experience.
Yeah, the one memory that I have of Dalymount Park, a friend told me I was really jealous of him. But Pascal, he went to see in 1976. He went to see Bob Marley in Dalymount Park. I
Deadly.
was like,
Imagine
what?
that.
That's a
Tin Lizzy
nice.
played there as well, did they? There's like a mural of Tin Lizzy, like who must have played there. And yeah, in the 70s again, there's a mural of Phil in it
Yeah, it
on the
must have
wall. But
been it must have been a real venue, for bands in the 70s.
I tell you what, it's a great. I don't know how I've lived to be 44 and never been to a League of Ireland match. Maybe my dad wasn't into football or whatever,
Right, yeah.
but a real great experience. It was good. It was good crack. Do you know? Like I've been to like rugby matches. I like rugby. To be honest, right? I don't really like football. The atmosphere was great at the match, right? But it was a 1-1 kind of. There was about 2 or 3 minutes of excitement in the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? There's a 10:02 prayer going off.
Yeah.
Lord, send your workers into the harvest.
Amen.
But it was a great atmosphere. Right? So I go to rugby matches in like to see Leinster play, and it's great and it's exciting. I find rugby as a game is more exciting, but the crowd in rugby are a bit more reserved, and there's moments of excitement and cheering and all. But that Bows match was like standing for 90 minutes, non-stop chanting and singing songs, and
Right.
it's like just full on, all in, just this energy. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it. It was great. Unique, kind of mostly like seemed like mostly like north side, inner city, dubs, and it was just a cool experience. Loads of
Yeah.
young fellas. It made me think about them young fellas and all around. Who's reaching them? Who's maybe
Yeah.
because that the same week I'd watched that. Have you seen that Louis Theroux Manosphere thing, or have you seen it
We watched a couple of
promoted?
minutes of it yesterday because Becky was telling me about it, and I watched a couple of mad, isn't it? I mean, it's
Yeah,
real. That stuff is real, and that people are listening. Millions and millions of followers. Incredible.
yeah. I was just thinking when I was there because I'm surrounded by young fellas, in all their Monterey or Monterex or whatever it's called, tracksuits and all with the same haircut and all, but you know just like who's speaking to that generation, and they're looking to these guys because there's a vacuum of people who are actually speaking to what they're experiencing and
Yeah.
what they live in. And so yeah, maybe it make a good topic for a podcast. Maybe we both watch that one over that full documentary over the next week and come back and have a chat about it, and what's good
Yeah.
in it, what's bad in it, because somebody needs to start speaking to to young men. you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're dead right. You're dead right. I watched it for a few minutes, and the reason is I sort of digest some of that stuff on small bites because I can deal with a lot. I just a lot of like effing just drives me
Right,
mad.
although, yeah, you have to,
And like they're young guys, like, and I get it. Like I'm not a prude, but I take it in bites because it starts to nearly hurt my ears after a while,
yeah, yeah.
so I just go, look, I understand, but it was, and I like fair play to your man Louis, man. He just asks us some great questions, and his face and he looks the way he looks and all, and it's all it's
He's
all like,
disarming, isn't he? He's kind of
yeah,
disarming.
yeah,
Comes across as kind of harmless, but he's setting yourself. That's what all the anti commentary I've seen on it. That's what people are commenting about him is he just gives people enough space to talk themselves into a hole. Like he doesn't
yeah,
argue with them. He just like asks a question that lets when they silence does the work, and when they keep trying to answer, they just demolish their own arguments. It makes it's an
it's
awesome thing to
brilliant,
watch.
yeah.
It is great, yeah.
Like, and just like, yeah, like he doesn't say it and he goes, "Oh, you don't agree with that?" And Louis like, "No, I never said anything. I'm just processing." But
Yeah,
it's like they're posing the questions they think he has just by a look, and you're like,
yeah.
"That's really, really good."
But it made me think, yeah, just them young fellas, and even from being in Oberstown, it seemed like the same vibe with when we go into Oberstown and there's that group of young fellas around. They're young fellas around the same age, the same kind of banter, same laugh, the same
Yeah,
messing and slagging and all of that, But thousands of them there, to watch this match and all together, and I'm like, man, I don't know, just a heart for them, that
yeah,
you could just be
brilliant. Yeah,
lost, and so. Yeah, maybe we do that. Maybe if you can manage to process that documentary
yeah. No,
and
I
have a
will.
chat,
Like, I intended to like because it's on your thing now to continue. So I
Yeah,
just take snatches at it.
cool. Well, what we were thinking of, yeah, we were thinking of looking at today is just this whole thing of being tired. Of why am I exhausted all the time? I think the most common, I realized about myself, the most common thing when people ask me how I was doing, I would just respond with, busy, tired, but good. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably most people's experience, I think. I had to challenge it after a while because I'm like, I'm always saying that. I'm always busy. I'm always tired, but not necessarily bad. Now, there was a point a year or two ago where it got to a point of exhaustion, but it seems like just that tiredness is the norm, right? Exhaustion eventually is maybe where it leads, but it's like in society right now, that's just the norm. It's expected that you're going to be tired, you're going to be busy. There's not going to be enough hours in the day. You're going to be under work pressure. You're going to be under family pressure. You're going to be under pressure to achieve, pressure to enjoy life. I don't have enough
Yeah,
time to do this. I don't have enough time to do that thing I want to do, and and it's not even like bad stuff. It's like work that you care about and family that you care about and things you want to grow in, things you want to do. It seems like there's so much opportunity maybe in the world. There's so much, yeah, there's so much that you could do that you try and, in maybe good ways, right? Seize the moment, make it happen, all of that sort of stuff. But the reality is, I think people are just living with this almost unspoken acceptance that I'm just going to be tired.
yeah,
I'm just going to be tired forever. That's just what life looks like.
yeah. I was talking to a young fella he's living in London, an Irish lad living in London yesterday on the phone. That's why I actually stopped that program. He rang me and we got talking and he's like into acting and he started a business recently and it didn't work out and whatever. And he's thinking of moving now to another country. But he says, no, London is a fantastic place to live. It's a fantastic city. He says, you just can't get to see it. You can't get to do anything
You don't have time
because
to do it.
you don't have time to do it. Do you know?
The
Because you're,
culture, the culture of it is the pressure, yeah, to not enjoy it.
yeah. So he's like, he just said it's crazy that like you're living in a great place, but you just haven't got the time or the energy getting your finish
Yeah.
to actually enjoy the city that you're living in.
And that's the reality, isn't it? And even I know we chatted about AI stuff the other week, like, but even with all that, you can do a lot more, a lot quicker, right? So even say editing this podcast after, if we were to do this years ago, it'd be like a day of trying to edit it. Whereas within an hour after this is finished, it'll be online, it's edited, it's done because AI helps with all that editing stuff, right? But you would think then, oh well, now I'll have some more time to enjoy stuff, but because that doesn't take as long. But no, you just fill that space with the need to achieve more stuff. Do you know what I mean? With the need to do more. It doesn't free you
Yeah.
up any more time. Or the intensity, I think, of our work has changed as well as we become more productive and there's more opportunities and all that. You realize that some of your work just becomes very intense. Sometimes I'd finish like a couple of meetings or whatever, and I feel wrecked, and then I feel bad about feeling wrecked because I'm like, well, look, that was only 2 hours or 3 hours of meetings. But you don't realize that in those, I've come to understand it about myself. Even is like some of my work is like walking, right? That I can walk all day and not really get tired. But some of it is like the intensity of sprinting, and you could probably only sprint for like a minute, maybe even like 30 seconds before you're wrecked, you know, and it's somewhere in between there. But you know, you come off that work and you're able to be productive and you've got all this opportunity, you've got all these resources to enable that. Um, but you just end up wrecked. You end up sometimes at the end of the day, you know, thinking, right now I've got this time to enjoy myself. But you're like, I'm too banjaxed
Enjoy.
to enjoy it, to go to the gym, to pick up my guitar, to
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean? Just, I'm too
Yeah.
tired to, and that seems to be the norm, doesn't it? It's
A
just, I
hundred
think it's the
percent.
norm.
Yeah, 100%. It's like I was talking to a girl this morning at the prayer meeting, and she's in a like high intense job, and like we just talked about, you just have to keep finding balance. That's what our conversation was. But one of the things that Eric and my daughter keep saying over the years now, but she says to me one time, she says, "Ah, be kind to yourself." And I
Mm.
just go, "Yeah, of course." And then you go away and you go, "What is she even saying?" You know what I mean? And it's like them moments of intensity that you talked about and described. That's some of our work. You know, it can be intense. And instead of going, "Oh, I never got them other 20 things done because of this emergency," be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up and drive yourself into the ground now trying to get stuff done that you haven't even got the energy and you can't give it the attention that it deserves. Do you know?
Yeah.
And I just thought, well, that's it. Like, it's something that, like, we had a busy week last week, an intense week last week, but that was ringing in my ears. I'll be kind to yourself. Like,
Yeah.
just step back, sit back, find those moments that, like, you can actually be human, be,
Yeah.
you
And I
know,
think though, I think, and that can be good advice, right? But unless, and I think you're able to do it, right? Because of stuff we're going to get into, because of who Jesus is, because of identity, all that stuff we're going to get to, right? But you could also hear that stuff, be kind to yourself, right? Look after yourself, carve out time for yourself. And that just becomes another pressure, right? Or it becomes another unmet realization when it's like a week on. It's like, oh, I didn't carve out that time. I need to do that. You know, like all of this stuff, because I think there's something deeper going on, right? I think sometimes the natural assumption is, right, we're tired because we're too busy. So the answer is just get less busy, right? But I'm not sure that that's the actual reason for our exhaustion, the actual reason for our tiredness. I think there's something going on underneath, right? That that the reason we're exhausted or the reason we have that ongoing feeling isn't maybe necessarily like just our busyness or our schedule. I think it's the story that we believe about life and that we're living out. So that's some of the stuff I'd love
yeah,
to unpack because it's not just practical, because I've tried all the practical things, right? I've tried the, well, get more organized, schedule your meetings, work to a calendar, work to da da da, and then yeah, okay, done all that. Now I'm still wrecked. You know, what I mean? I'm still tired. Maybe I'm more productive, right? But
yeah,
I'm still tired. Um, and yeah, so I don't think the answer is, look, there is practical things like you're too busy, you're doing too much, right? And that's, I mean, that's obvious, but anyone in the world will tell you that. You know that
yeah.
yourself, right? Um,
It's the drivers, isn't it? It's the
yeah.
drivers beneath all of that is needs to be looked at, or because the world, and the way the world is, and the culture and the society we live in, like that's what that young lad was saying. Like, I have to keep doing, but
Yeah.
I'm still not enjoying. Like, I think a warden that, like, can be, it's very Bible, like, I admit, but like it's about living, like, and not like we're all living, but like it's about where we're living from.
Mm.
Is probably, will decide some of this stuff, whether we're exhausted and productive even, but still exhausted, not able to enjoy our productivity even.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's that space. It's like, I was thinking, like, and it's a good measure. Like, no, Jesus said he's come to give you life and life in its fullness. So, like, that's deep, that's big, and that's wide. And what, when I explore that, what is that? What really is that? Is it just breathing? No, he's not that shallow.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's like, what's the length and breadth of that, and what does it mean, and how does it, how is that going for you now? How is that going for you, Rob? That's the
yeah. That's the diagnostic question, and that's a line from it's a line from Fight Club. That how's that working out for you? And the
is
two
it?
guys meet on the plane, and
I've
I
never
don't know.
seen it.
One of the guys makes a joke, and he's like, "Oh, I tried to be funny or something," and then Brad Pitt character walks away from him. He's like, "Oh, how's that working out for you?" It's just this question, right? Like, and but it's funny you mention it because there's this other line from Fight Club. I'm gonna misquote it, right? But it speaks about the world we live in, and this was like a generation ago. It said like our says something like this, right? The Tyler Durden character says like our generation was raised by like media and advertising to be told that we'd all become actors and movie stars and achieve our wildest dreams. And something like we're slowly finding out that that's not the case, and we're really pissed off about it, right? It was like that kind of thing. But it's true, right? Because that's the world, and that's some of the underlying pressure, right? I was trying to say is like there's this pressure of opportunity, right? So say even I was raised, Rob, you can do anything with your life. You have the mind to do anything. You've got the opportunities to do anything. We live in a world with like incredible opportunities. In Ireland, you go and study anything you want in college. It's enabled, and the world seems to be shaped more and more to be like, because it's sold out for this idea that your greatest responsibility is to be all you can be, right? So we want to provide so that you can do that. And no, I know there's whole other things going on in the world, right? But that's the overarching message for my generation, anyway. And then you hit your 30s, your 40s, and you're not an actor or a movie star or a whatever. And so you can feel like you've underperformed, right?
Yeah,
You're like, did I waste all of this opportunity? Am I not as good as the people who took that opportunity, who went and ran with it? Did I get distracted? Did I get whatever? It's like this pressure that comes with opportunity nearly to be something. And I think that's what they were trying to
yeah.
communicate in Fight Club. And their answer was forget all that and get in a room with a bunch of lads and batter each other. Do you know what I mean? Like reject society and all that. But that was a generation ago, right? That was 20 something years ago. I remember going to see Fight Club when I was in college. So I was like 18, 19. So it's like 23, 24, 25
Wow.
years ago. But it's still the case. And you
Yeah,
think if the world, if it had made its way into media and art and the world was speaking about it and becoming aware of it, right? If it's made its way into a movie that's, capturing the cultural moment, um, you think if society had the power to actually do something about that, they would have done it, right? But it's not. It's just on steroids now, and it's amplified by social media and by you being able to carve out an identity for yourself, produce an identity, put it online, all of this stuff. We just live in a world where there's always this pressure that exists to to prove yourself, and I think that's where the exhaustion comes from, because
yeah,
it's not just that you're tired, it's that you're carrying something you were never meant to carry, which is this necessity to prove your worth to the world. And I think
yeah,
that's where the gospel is good news.
yeah. And all that stuff about, like, you're told you can do anything. All the things that you describe, and it isn't. And you go to college and it isn't, or you get a big job and it isn't. That's where it goes back to what you're saying. Then that creates this story
Hmm.
that you're living from or out of, or trying to produce or prove direct, and then we become like sort of masters of our own destruction in a way, because it's destructive in the end. It's like it leads us in different places and spaces in our lives. I was I used that phrase recently, in a setting where there was a couple of lads in prison, and it was my first time meeting them, and this young lad took the lead, and we were talking about the plans that God has. We were just sharing our story, and this young lad leans into me. So it wasn't aggressive or anything, like, it wasn't anything like that, but he was making this point, and there was a woman with me, and she said it, but he didn't lean into the woman. He leaned to me because I'm a father, and a lot of young lads, they're they're fatherless, even if there's fathers there at times. Like they're not being given that input and direction, and so he wouldn't say anything to the mother because there's always a mother in the home, for the most part. And but he leans into me to prove it to me, and he goes, he says, God hasn't got a plan for my life. And I says, well, he has. I believe he has. And he says, God has not got a plan for my life. And he's sitting on the edge of his chair at this stage. Like, again, not aggressive, but invading that space, like in the, so he says a couple of times, and he says, I'll tell you why God hasn't got a plan for my life. I says, why? He says, because I have a plan for my life. And it was just like this moment of absolute wisdom. But I didn't know it was wisdom. I said, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
And he sits back in this, he just sits back in the chair like a light went on, a penny dropped, a slap in the back of the head. I don't know what it was. But and the other three lads that were there let a sigh out. They went, like, why didn't we ever think of that? How is that working out for you?
Yeah.
And what a question.
Yeah.
Simple but profound.
And it's a drive though, isn't it? It's a drive outside of the gospel. I get what people are going after, right? We need a source of identity. We need to know we matter, right? They're
Yeah,
good. They're good drives. Now I think those drives are meant to point us to God, to the one who can actually satisfy them, right? But if nobody has heard that message, if they don't know that, that's why the gospel is good news and needs to be preached, right? Is saying that that drive, that need for identity, that need for approval, that need to be enough, is satisfied, right, in the gospel. And we'll talk around that, right? Because you don't want to just frame the problem here, right? We can frame the solution, but I think the real issue is that like everything in our lives has become like loaded with identity, right? So we're wrecked, right? And we're tired, but the exhaustion isn't necessarily just from having too many things to do. It's from trying to be enough all the time, right? Trying to carve out um identity. There's like an invisible weight that you mightn't be able to name, but when you see it, then you realize how what you've been living towards, right? There's like this invisible weight we carry for approval, right? Just for someone to recognize us and see our worth and approve of what we're doing, right? Now, if you don't, I know a source for that, and you know a source for that that can enable us to rest, right? But if you don't have that source that comes from God, I get why you would chase it in the world because you need it, right? And all of the saying to people, no, don't need anybody's approval, just it doesn't work, right? Because you can't fill that void. You can't get rid of it. Logic doesn't get rid of it. Do you know what I mean? We need like identity. We need to justify our existence in some way, right? And what happens is that the things that are good in our lives, family, work, fitness, all of those things, right? They we attach to them like our identity, right? We attach to them like this deeper significance. And this may be news to you. You may not realize that you're doing it, but I hope that your eyes are open to see that this is what's going on. That the tiredness doesn't just come because of having too many things to do. It comes from us trying to leverage those things to achieve something that they're never going to achieve, which is security and significance and approval deep down in our souls, right? Because the world says there's so much potential in your life, go and realize it. And that sounds inspiring, right? But what that actually does is put your whole life on your shoulders. And there's the pressure to achieve. And what if you don't? And when is enough achievement enough? And when is a job big enough? And when is a relationship good enough? And when have you been a good enough dad or a good enough ma? There's just this constant background noise that exists. What do you
yeah.
think? Do you agree?
No, I like it's like well, look, I agree that like if you don't know, there's good news that I 100% even with good news, you can drag some of that into thinking I now have to live this out now as a Christian, as a believer until you understand some of the beauty and the the privileges that we're given when we become believers, like who we are,
Mm.
that God has a plan. Because if not, it's like what you were describing there. I was thinking of Solomon, who had everything, and he's like, it's like chasing the wind. That stuff.
It's all
It's like,
meaningless.
yeah, it's like it may be like I know sometimes like in Ecclesiastes he comes across like real depressed and all that, but maybe they were more moments of realizations
Mhm.
of, my goodness, I have everything. Like, I mean, everything. Read it. Just read his life. He withheld nothing from himself. And he comes to this realization: I've chased all this stuff,
Mm.
trying to find out who I am, what I have the power to do, and I gain it all. And it's like, I realize it's meaningless without other stuff. It wasn't like all that stuff is meaningless in and of its, in and of itself, it ends up meaningless because it doesn't satisfy those longings, those desires, those needs. And like, if anybody, like when you were saying that, if like someone, I don't need anyone's approval, and like, just an honest look at yourself and go, well, how is that working out for you?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you probably end up with, being a type of character that nobody wants to be with. And
yeah.
it's like, so it doesn't work out. We know the end because,
And you're still trying to carve out identity based on people's approval, right? But it's based on not wanting it now. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah,
based on
yeah,
being cool enough or strong enough or whatever to not need it. But that's still controlling your life. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
still it's still a definer of your life. I'm the person who doesn't need anybody's approval, and that will put as many demands on you as being the person who's needy for somebody's approval,
yeah,
right? It'll still leave you feeling wrecked all the time. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know if anyone really like the people. I don't need anyone's approval. I'm just going to achieve this for me for da da da. But yeah, but really, if it was just in a vacuum and there was nobody to see you doing it, you probably wouldn't be. You
yeah.
probably wouldn't be going after it. Do you know?
And the thing is, like, look, I've been in ministry nearly most of my adult life after 22, and I'm 59 now, and there's not many of these characteristics that we haven't met. And then when they come to know, what, I'm loved for who I am by the
Mm-hmm.
Lord, like it's like I've seen enough of people that's people regret. People regret. Why didn't I do this years ago? Why didn't I know this? Like, I've heard that so many times. Like, as a pastor, as a Christian, as a man, that's like that. Like, people, like, we've met them, no matter whether it's someone that's a high achiever or a low achiever or someone who's, and when these things are met by the Lord in their life, you're like, they know what it is to be alive in those areas of acceptance, of identity, of that pressure that is taken off your shoulder. Like, where it's like, wow. And that's the reality. There's millions of people that would attest to that,
Yeah, and
beyond this podcast.
it exists in the church as well, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
like magically this happens that, oh, now I'm a Christian, all of a sudden I don't believe that anymore, or like there's this process of appropriating it, and it's cyclical as well. There's been times where I've had a deep revelation of what it means to be accepted by Jesus, what it means because of Jesus, to be righteous because of him, that my identity is secure, all of that, right? And then a month or two later, I'm back on the treadmill of trying to prove myself
Yeah.
or whatever. There's an application that has to go on. So I'm not saying like the Christians are these people who've had this revelation and now everything is different. Um, but what I am saying is that this revelation exists and it's something that needs to be appropriated, like taken on
Yeah.
daily, right? In relationship with God. It's not a here at once and now I've stopped striving. Now I've stopped trying to carve out an identity. Now I've stopped, you know,
Yeah.
pushing all the time. Now I'm not tired anymore, you know.
No, you're dead right, Rob. It's like, I was going to use the word, like, it's something that when you know the truth, and it's, you have to nearly enforce it.
Mm.
Because there's this the society life, your own heart, your own unhealed elements of your life that's on the way to be healed, they scream at you every day. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Next conversation, next, do you know what I mean? Like, I remember I was in a room, and with a load of other pastors, and we were all talking about education. And I left school when I was 13, but I went back to college twice to do a bachelor's, and
Mhm.
then I was on that other master's degree with you. And they said something, and for some reason, I go, like, which is not like me to do this, right? But for some reason I went like that. Yeah, I think we were in the middle of the masters, and I went, yeah, I done a bachelor of arts degree in Bible college, and I'm in the middle of a master's. And when I said it, my stomach turned, because I
Yeah.
I was doing it from one of those drivers, and I went outside and I was like, Lord, why did I feel I needed to, you know, affirm myself in front of these men. Like,
Been there,
like,
man. Done it. Yeah,
yeah, and so it's not like a goal, but you have to, like, like my word is not based on that. Who I am to God is not based on that. God's call on my life is not based on that. All the things that, like, whatever I was trying to actually say to them, I'm as qualified as you
yeah,
by
yeah,
using that standard. But like, but I'm not. I'm only qualified to do what I'm to do because he qualified me. And the amazing thing, when we were being sent out all the years ago from St. Mark's to plant Liberty Church, which was Rialto at the time, actually, like the man called Jeff Lucas was there that Sunday, an English man, and he knew us but didn't really knew enough about us. But when we were getting sent down, they were praying for us, and he said, "People are gonna ask you, where's your ecclesiastic credentials?" And he says, "Your credentials are that you care. You care enough to give up your work and go and reach people. You care enough to leave this safe place as a church and go and reach people." And yeah, here I was, that was everything. That was who I was. That's who God was in me. That was all the affirmation. I didn't need it from him, but like obviously I had some affirmation because I wouldn't have done what I was going to be doing. But he was affirming me in what really, really is like was really of God. But here I was with these men trying to now prove on a worldly, manly society way. No, I'm qualified as well. And it was, oh, I'll never forget it. But that's what I'm trying to say, that could happen in the next meeting that we go to. That encroaches on you again, and you feel, you know, people say, who are you? And we tell everybody what we do. I just ask, who are you? Oh, no.
yeah, yeah. No, it does. It affects our identity. It's like, well, I think we need to just explain or even just promote to people like what the message of the gospel actually is, right? So, what does Jesus say in all this? The obvious place to go is right that Jesus says, there's Matthew 11, right? 28. He says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Right? So that sounds like great news, doesn't it? I mean, like, you come to me and I'll give you rest for your soul. Um, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. But what does that actually mean? What's it mean to come to Jesus? How can he give you rest for your soul? How can he stop this work beneath the work, is what Tim Keller calls it, is like this striving work that's ongoing. We have the surface level work we think we're doing, but really underneath there's this deeper work going on of trying to matter, really trying to be enough. And I think that's the answer that Jesus gives. He doesn't just give advice on, well, here's a productivity tool, here's an app to download, here's a way of organizing your day. He addresses the deeper need for identity. And I think, well, what I've come to experience is that what he's doing, and the reason he can make that claim, is that he's going to make a way through his death and through his resurrection that we can be connected to God. He's going to prove our worth in that the Son of God died for us in order to connect us back to him, to enable us to be in relationship with us. So when he's on the cross and he gives his life for us, like, is there any greater worth? Can you imagine any greater worth being attributed to you than saying God himself was willing to come and be made flesh and to die on a cross to take the punishment for the things that you've done wrong so that you could be redeemed? That he loved you so much, he wants eternity with you so much, he wants to be in relationship with you so much, that he was willing to do that, right? So your worth is proven in that moment, which means that the striving to prove your worth can really can stop, right? But that's not just an intellectual thing. That's not just, oh, you hear that and then that magically happens, right? It's something that happens in relationship with you, where he says, I'll give you rest. Come to me and I'll give you rest. Not know this about me and you'll figure out how to get rest. He's like, now he says that he comes and he would live in us by his Holy Spirit. This is the message of the gospel, right? And that he would give us a new heart, meaning that those motivations that previously drove us, the need for approval, the need for significance, the need to matter, like, this new heart would know that we're approved of, that we're significant, that we matter more than we we even think, because God was willing to go to these lengths to do it. This new heart that he gives us, that happens, it's a spiritual reality, right? Enables us to comprehend that. Now, if you're not a Christian, that might sound mad to you, but it's true. And talk to anybody who's living in the experience of that, and it's the reality. Now, we're in a battle. We have old ways of thinking and new ways of thinking, and old ways of living and new ways of living, and it's a constant appropriation and believing that. But it's true. You're not just left. There's no real hope in the message of, here's what's really going on. You need approval and you need comfort and you need significance. Just don't need those things and you'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? Or just give up on those things, because you can't. You still need them, right? But what the gospel does is it fulfills all of those things that you need, that you're looking for in work and in family and in fitness and in your appearance and in all of those things where you're trying to carve out your identity. And it says you have an identity that's been given to you, that you were made with this identity. It's been corrupted by the world, and the world is trying to twist it, and the world's trying to leverage, like, for you to gain something that Jesus says, here it is as a gift. I made you with a purpose. I knew a plan I had for you before the foundations of the world, right? I made you to walk in these things, and I'm going to enable you to do that by walking with you, by giving you this new heart. And it's the way that we receive that is just by grace. That's why he says, come to me and I'll give you rest for your soul. It's a gift that you receive, which is the antidote to what everything else is, and why we're busy. Is like, we're busy because we're trying to achieve, we're trying to get, we're trying to earn, we're trying to attain what it is that Jesus says he'd actually give us as a gift. So the gospel it's this huge news. We're Good Friday is like next Friday, and we're doing this service in family base on the last words that Jesus said on the cross. And the ones that really sticks out to me is this: it is finished. You know, that's the thing. It is finished, right? And that means the striving, the work. Like, so what Jesus was doing was finished, but I think he's speaking to like a deeper reality for us, right? That the striving, the trying to prove ourselves, the needing to earn our worth, all of that stuff, that's already settled. That's settled in Jesus. So he doesn't come and say, try harder, try to optimize your life, do this, this, and this, right? Although there is the expectation that now from that new life we can live in a new way, right? But he frees us and gives us a new perspective on how we understand not just our own lives, but how we understand the universe. That's why I said at the beginning, like, our problem isn't necessarily our schedule. It's what we believe about the story. It's the story we live in. Who am I? Where do I get identity from? Where do I get significance from? Where do I get security from? Because I need those things. And if they're the result of my work or the result of doing well as a father or whatever, right, then I'm constantly going to be under a pressure to achieve them. And the irony is that it can't achieve that, and we'll know that it doesn't, right? Anyone who's there, if they're honest about their lives, when was the achievement enough? When was good enough good enough? Even if you attain like what you think is like a perfect relationship, a perfect family, now you're under the pressure to maintain that, right? You're under the pressure to not lose it, you know? You live in the fear of it or whatever. Whereas Jesus offers us something that God himself, the one in control of everything, says, I can give you rest. And it comes as we trust in him. It comes as we begin piece by piece to unpack where we've been finding identity, where we've been finding meaning and significance, and instead begin to look to him for that. And as we look to him for that, he meets those needs and we experience it in. I remember early days when we met together to pray. And I know I've said this before, too, but there's times when we would meet together to pray in the morning, and I'd be like on my knees or I'd be in worship, and I would just be like, Lord, you're enough. And in those moments, like I experienced, doesn't matter if this thing at my family happens or it doesn't. It doesn't matter if we manage to build a church or not. It doesn't matter. It's just like this experience, like I was experiencing in that moment, God's just sufficiency, right? Which means now you have to do that again tomorrow. You have to do it again, because you leave that prayer space and you're in a world that shouts, you're not enough. Yeah. Achieve. And it might even say that in language, you know what I mean? But it doesn't say you're not enough. But what it does, it presents you with all people who are doing better than you, who look like they're doing better than you. Like, especially with social media, the striving is there, you know, it presents you with opportunities and more work and all of that sort of stuff. And something in us like craves that. But if we're secure in Jesus, and what I'm trying to tell you is that it's possible to be secure in Jesus, so that the work that you do doesn't carry that meaning anymore, and you can be free to do the work that you do and enjoy it and go after it and work hard from a place of a new heart. Your family, you don't have to put under the pressure to be the perfect family in order to legitimize your life. Instead, you can take your family for the blessing that they are and love them
Yeah.
unconditionally, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I've been talking for a while. I'll let
No,
you
no, it's great.
squeeze
I
in.
got loads of thoughts coming in, and now I'm like, every time you went somewhere else, I'm like, oh yeah,
I was like, don't pause, don't leave a gap for him to jump in because I've got something to say.
like, just don't take a breath. No, I first of all, I was thinking, yeah, exactly that. It's not just now you set up a new set of beliefs. It's like, they that comes along, but like Jesus is somebody, the Lord is someone to be experienced. And I was thinking back, like just the other day, 22nd of March, last Sunday, we were 37 years walking with the Lord, myself and Sharon, or
Yeah.
the Lord walking with us is more the case. And so like you reflect, it's a very reflective type of time for me when that day comes around. And it's every time it's full of Thanksgiving, Rob, absolutely Thanksgiving.
Hmm.
But I also remember the night, the 22nd of March is when I publicly said, I believe in Jesus. Like I gave him publicly. But the Friday night before that, that was a Tuesday, but the Friday night before that, I was listening to it. My friend McFinley gave me a tape of a young man singing. And on it was the last song of the three songs, the last words were, like a lamb they led him out, and not a word came from his mouth. Speaking about Jesus going to Calvary, and not a word came from his mouth, and he cried out from the hill of Calvary. And it was back in the days of tapes, and when I heard them words, I started to cry, but I didn't know why I was crying. And I rewound it. I played them again, like a lamb they led him out, and not a word came from his mouth, and he cried out from the hill of Calvary. And I don't know whether I heard this in my head, or my heart, or my ear, but I heard God saying, I love you. And I love you enough to die on a cross for you, was the words. And with that I was like God opened up my head and poured in this love into my heart that I couldn't stop crying. I was like, Sharon, my wife, was looking at me like, what in the world's going on? But I just couldn't stop. And that love was meeting needs that I craved for, that and continues. That love is a continuous pouring out when I need it. And all these years on, and all these things that, like, I've boiled it down in my life a couple of years ago to these three things. This is my prayer life in a nutshell. Good, bad, and different. Whether I get it right, wrong, whether I am in need or not in need, this is my life. I do this little thing like that. I am deeply loved. And I'm not saying it as a mantra, I know it. And it's only I have to say it to myself when I don't feel it. And I'm fully accepted. I give myself a little squeeze, and I do this with my hand, and I'm divinely called. And that meets when I don't feel like when my pressure's on, when I feel I'm not good enough, when them things there. No, no, hang on a minute now.
Hmm.
I'm deeply loved. Not because of anything I've done, but because God gave His Son, and He proved and He showed me, and I experienced His love, and I'm fully accepted. I don't have to strive. Just the reason why I do it every day is because I have to remind myself,
Yeah.
that, like, no, you're not loving people. You're not preaching that word. You're not going to meet that person because you're doing that to be accepted. Like, you are accepted, and from that place you can do this. How am I? All I wanted to be in life, Rob. Like, I was 22, and when I got saved, we had Patrice, Rob's wife. We had her when we were 16, and for 4 years between 18 and 22, I was just absent. I just was selfish, and I was smoking myself into oblivion with weed. And when I realized, when His love came into me, all I wanted to be from when we had Patrice when we were six, was a good father, and it was being robbed on me. And when I became a Christian, I was like, Lord, this is all. I didn't want to be a pastor. I never asked to go on missions. I never asked nothing. I was like, Lord, make me the father this girl needs. And I could not have done that if I had all those other things left alone in me. But
Hmm.
what God gives us is this, it gives us, like, not just an alternative, but if you haven't got an alternative to these things, you're just living out them. But now God says, no, that's not the only way to live, son. I've come
Yeah.
to give you life. And now, now I have a choice. Now I can, like, not just words, because God's word is true, but out of experience this, that I'm like, no, I'm not living in a place like It's easy to say I'm deeply loved when I've gotten everything wrong, or everything right. But believe me, I've failed God a billion times. And it's in them moments I know I have to pull myself in. No, no, you're deeply loved. Like, and without them experiences, like, it just becomes something else. Because if not, like, even in other parts, and even in church, and even in their own lives, you can, when I get into, I'll pray more, fast more, give more. I know I'm in trouble straight away, Rob, in my own heart. I'm like, no, you're trying to prove something here now, where you already have all of that acceptance, love, and call. Like, you don't have to now do. But I find more and more that my own heart will make me want to go down those roads. And then, but I've had this little thing. I was like, say that with experience 3 times a day, and you'll keep the psychiatrist away, the doctor away, the devil away. You'll keep them all away. I'm deeply loved. I'm fully accepted, and I'm divinely called.
I like the proactive nature of it, right? It's like preempting stuff. It's taking this thing, setting yourself up for what you know you're going to face, and because of experience and because you faced it, it's like being on the front foot in that stuff. Because we can often just be on the back foot and reacting in moments, and there's tools to do that as well. But it's remembering who you are, and look, it can creep into our Christianity. It can creep into, it's just there. There's been times in my life where I'd even use the scripture to justify it. Like, I'd be like, well, look, Paul says, press on towards the goal. Do you know what I mean? I'm busy, I'm flat out, but look, press on towards the goal, achieve the prize, run like the one who's
Yeah, it's
disciplined. Do
there,
you know what
isn't
I mean?
it?
It's like this pressure that you could just leverage to say some biblical legitimization for what you really want to do. It was carve out your own identity, win the race, like be seen as whatever. Um, but then you realize how we actually did it, because Paul's like this great exponent of the gospel of grace and of identity. And we're in Romans right now in the Bible Project, and it's huge. You know what I mean? This thing of righteousness received as a gift because of what Jesus has done is gigantic. This position and how it interacts with the law and all of that. Loving being in Romans. But there's a verse in Corinthians where Paul is like, I worked harder than all of them, right? Do you know what I mean? And the part where you're in, where you're a bloke, you don't want to be able to say that. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
something,
yeah,
maybe growing up working class as well, is like the thing of work, like, no, I proved I worked harder than all of them. But then the next line after, right, which you can probably easily skip, he's like, I worked harder than all of them. He says, yet not I, but the grace of God in me. He's effectively saying, like, on the surface, it may look like I work hard, but what's really happening is that God, by his grace, is in me and shaping me and enabling me to do things that I just can't do in my own strength. Like, he's secure, right? It's like that Paul, he worked incredibly hard, but he wasn't trying to prove anything. Like, and that's
yeah,
that's I think that's where I think that's the key to exhaustion. We opened with this question, like, why am I exhausted? I think the key is that we're always trying to prove something. And if we could come to the rest of the gospel of knowing that it's already proven, it's already finished, it's already done, then it's hugely freeing, right?
yeah,
It's like that our identity isn't up for debate. It's done in Jesus. Do you know what I mean? Our significance, our security, all of those things, they're secure in him, and it's the reality of it. Now, that doesn't mean now that we just take it easy, or we don't live a meaningful, or like our lives still matter, right? Like, it's not like, okay, well, now, well, sure, if it's all finished in Jesus, maybe I'll just sell the house and I'll go and sit on a beach somewhere, and do you know what I mean? Don't have to
yeah,
achieve anything or do anything. But it's now the joy of stepping into his purposes, enabled by his grace, working from what you already have and living out of the reality of that, rather than working to try and attain it, or to try and get it. It's the idea of working from rest rather than resting from work. And if we always are aiming to rest from work, um, we're not going to get there. I don't
yeah.
think so, because the rest isn't
No,
enough. But there's a rest we can receive, where we can work from rest, from an inner reality that's ongoing. That there's a deep rest in our souls, even when we're busy in work. There's a rest in our souls when we're in tough family situations. There's a rest in our souls when we're struggling with, achieving whatever it is that we feel we're meant to achieve in life. But we're not trying to prove ourselves anymore,
yeah,
because our worth's been proven.
yeah, yeah. Look, I think it's the only place to live from, because when you live, when you know this stuff, right, and you've experienced this stuff, like, that's, you always have stuff coming in, right? So you have a victory stance of, like, no, I know that doesn't work, but I know this works, so I'm going to apply myself to the things of God. But in that place of rest, and rest meaning knowing who he is, who you are, what you're on this planet for, it makes sense. Then everything else makes sense for you. It makes sense why you go to college to achieve a certain thing or to be a doctor or whatever. It makes sense why you're on the planet. It makes sense why you get up in the morning. It makes sense when, what you do with your money. All of a sudden, like when you have that, and you have them things coming into alignment, then all the other things, like there's a line in a song. I love Brian Houston, the singer from the north. There's a line in one of his songs, and I think it's on 35 Summers, and it goes, you're the only one that satisfies. No, it's called You Are Mystical. You're the only one that satisfies. You're the only one that makes my life make sense. And that's a reality for me, that outside of him, my whole life, why just people go, who am I? What am I here for? Because they're trying to make sense. And then all that other story comes in. Well, if I have this, I might know why I'm here. If I, where, and what a line, I only listened to it the other day, and it was just like, man, I love that line, because it's the reality. When I'm in that space, you're in that moment of contentment, like, there's nowhere like it on the planet. There's nothing that can give you that moments where you go, like Paul said, whether I have or haven't, I'm content.
Yeah.
Whether I'm recognised or not recognised, I'm content. Whether I've a rack of achievements behind me or letters after my name or not, I have found this place of contentment. And that's what every single person in the world is trying to strive for, achieve, boy, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Feel.
And
And
they might think that the Christian way sounds mad, right? Or it sounds like, well, you're telling me if I believe all of that, stuff is going to change. Like, how can my belief change, like, my experience? But Jesus meets us in that belief, right? It's
yeah,
it's it's experienced, and it's like, they might think that it's mad, but look, here's what's matter, right? Like, everybody already has a set of beliefs that they're living by, right? The only thing is, like, you didn't choose those beliefs. They were just forced on you by the world. They're being influenced by media. They're being influenced by the systems of the world, right? That are effectively telling you, here's what you need to do to matter, right? And hopefully we've unpacked some of those there, right? And you recognize them, that they're beliefs that you hold, right? And so your beliefs right now are affecting the way that you live, right? And all what we're presenting here is that there's another truer way to live. And the reality of it is, like that question you asked, how are those beliefs working out for you? Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Is your experience right now that you're tired, that you're not achieving, or you are achieving and it doesn't feel like
yeah,
the way you were sold that it would feel? That there's pressures, that you're living in anxiety, or you're living in fear, or you're living in the pressure of thinking you'll never have enough, or you won't be enough, or whatever. It's your beliefs about the world are shaping that. And the irony is that then we double down on those beliefs, or we think, well, look, I just need a different life, or I just need to apply. But the problem is the foundation of what you're understanding
yeah,
about the nature of of the human heart, the nature of the universe, the nature of God, if he exists, or how he interacts with us, or whatever. But the gospel, here's what I've come to find, is that the gospel, it holds weight, right? Like, as a worldview, as an experienced thing, like in every way, right? As I've tested it and I've stepped into it, there's never been a space where it's let down, or it didn't hold water, or it fell apart, right? In fact, I've become more convinced of its truth the longer I've lived, and the more experience I've had, and the more ups and downs I've been through. I'm further convinced that this is true, and it's the only thing that can actually satisfy our needs. This gospel of grace, right? And Christianity is unique in that, in this gospel of grace, is saying it's not about what you do, it's not about what you achieve, it's not about how your life could please God or please others or impact whatever. It's like, this is what has been done for you, so that you can receive what it is that you deeply need. That's unique. That's
yeah.
huge. That's something we have to be told, because the world isn't shouting it at us. You're not going to come up with it yourself.
No,
But the
no.
the words of this thing, like, tell us this story, and as we step into that story, then I think that's where real rest can be achieved.
Exactly, Rob. And it's like, I keep want to say something, then I keep losing it. But like, oh yeah, that, like, for anyone that's listening that is like exploring, like, or it's like, could this be true? What is the message? What is the good news? Because
Mm.
sometimes, like, over the centuries and decades of Christianity, I'm like, guys, will you just keep the good news the good news? It's good news. Like, and this is good news. And maybe people are like, what is that good news? Is it just about don't do this, don't do that, like give up this, stop, you know what I mean? You know, like a personality change, or you know what I mean? You know, it's all about stuff that you have to let go of. But not Christianity, and but not Christianity, believing in Jesus is what you gain.
Hmm.
It's what you gain that makes that other stuff look like, wow, where have I been living? Like, what have I been living out? And then as a believer, and even as someone that is learning or doesn't even believe, the Lord gives us, like, look at that, it's an invitation to come. Come
Yeah.
to me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, come and I show you how who I
Yeah.
am. I'll show you. Like, God is not. My friend Mick says to me, if God is real, before I was a believer, he said, if God is real, ask him to show himself. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. There wasn't a greater sentence ever said by any other philosopher, person in the world to me. That was like, yeah, if God is real, ask him. And he gives you opportunities. Like the rich young ruler in the Bible, he was giving him an opportunity to come into this experience of living that was outside of all of his money and all of his religion, because he had both of them. And it's like, and he ended up, like, as far as, well, he walked away, as we know. We don't know whether he ever came back, but he was like, it was too hard for him to let go of all that other stuff. Then you have someone like Zacchaeus, that little man that you might have heard about in church years ago, or sang the song or whatever. Like, he was corrupt. He was a corrupt tax collector that was working for the Romans against his own people. And he's up on a tree. He was small in stature. I don't think, maybe he was a little man, but I think his small in stature, as the Bible says, is much beyond just the size of him. But like, nobody wanted him. He was hiding away. Imagine the names that he was called, and also the names that he called himself, right? So one rich ruler walks away. Jesus walking by, he looks up at this corrupt robber of his own people with taxes, and he was obviously robbing the Romans as well. You don't just rob one and not the other. Like, you're a robber, you're a robber. And he looks up and he says, Zacchaeus, I want to go to your house. And the word that it means, I want to dwell. I want to dwell in your place. I want to, no, not dwell. I want to abide, right? And he comes down, right? But Jesus calls him by his name Zacchaeus means pure and innocent, right? So everyone's going, see, that's Zacchaeus, well, he's a dirty, rotten scumbag, robber, da, da, da. But Jesus says his name, but it hasn't got all that stuff attached to it. And it's like, come on, I want to go down, I want to abide in your place. And you can imagine, like, them words, just Jesus saying, leave all that striving up in the tree that you're trying to
Yeah.
gain. Leave all that popularity. Well, it's not even, you might have popularity with the Romans, but you haven't got it with your own people. Leave all that there, and I will abide with you. I will show you how this thing continually go. And we know something happened in him, because he says, oh, Jesus, I'm going to give everyone I robbed back that money 4 times over.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
This
mean?
encounter with Jesus results
Yeah, that, like,
in
in
life
like,
change
like
immediately.
I don't
Yeah.
need all that money. He's after pointing out, this is who you are. This is your true
Mm.
identity. Like, this is, and the Lord will give us opportunities. Like, he gives us opportunities to be invited into this life, but then that's an opportunity to experience that what
Yeah.
he actually says is for real. And like, I remember thinking of when you were saying this, that I've known like these challenges in my own life. Like, I remember that time I was nearly on every stage in the country, to be honest, like at different conferences and day to day, and like, we were doing great things in the Lord outside of Liberty, and the Lord told me to drop her all. I was on a national leadership team. I was being promoted to being the national leader of an organisation if I wanted it, and the Lord told me to drop her all. Drop her all now. Drop tools, down tools. I want you just to be in Liberty, and there was challenges to it in this way, that the people that I was on team with, like, some of them had gotten sick, and I put it off handing in, like, sort of my stepping down type of thing. And the Lord kept continually spoke it to me through about 10 people, honestly, drop tools, right? In all different ways. And it was all based off of this. I've said from the beginning, Jesus, you're more than enough for me. And when it got to that point, like, I'm like, Jesus, you're more than enough for me. And I went in, I said to the team, oh, like, I'm stepping down now, leadership. This is what the Lord has said, and I stepped out, right? And one of the leaders said to me a couple of months later, he says, no, I'd never be able to do that. And I says, why? I says, give up all that popularity. And I was genuinely able to say, thanks be to God, that Jesus, honestly, it wasn't even really that hard, Rob. The delay wasn't because it was hard. The
Yeah.
delay was because of circumstances that I felt the team would have been absolutely weakened, and I wouldn't have done that. But it wasn't hard. But years later, I was talking to a guy called Russ Klein in the car, and he was like, "How did it all work out and all? Now, what was all that about?" And I was telling him, and I said, "You know, I always said to the Lord that you're more than enough for me, and I had Jesus before I had anyone knew my name." When I was a young fella in Dalton's bar when I became a Christian, no one knew who I was. No one knew what God had, like, I didn't know what God had put in me. I didn't know. I was just happy that I was like out of craziness, that the life I was living in, out of the madness in my mind, the insignificance was tormenting me. Like, why am I here in this world? And when I was talking to him, I said, you know, Russ, that, like, I always said to Jesus, he's more than enough. No, he's more than enough for me. And in that moment, I had this revelation. Russ, I meant it. I actually, like, I had this moment. Like, this was like a couple of good few years later. I said, Russ, I actually meant that.
They weren't just words. I
Yeah,
meant
that
that.
all them years, like, it was like real. That, like, Jesus, I don't need that to be who you called me to be. I don't need to strive after platforms and likes and, isn't he great moments? No, that's not what was important in the end. Why? Only reason why is because he'd messed something of those questions
Yeah.
deeper that would cause you to strive or cause you to wear yourself into the ground or wear your family into the ground, your loved ones into the ground, just trying to meet a need that Jesus beautifully meets
Satisfies.
in significant ways that, like, is yours, and to be your personal story of how he met that and satisfied that need within us, because
Mm.
it's the same result, but it's all different because we're all different people.
And the invitation, as you said it, man, the invitation is still there, right? So Jesus says that, come to me if you labor and you're heavy laden, and I'll give you rest, right? Those are the words of God. If somebody's listening in and you need rest, if you're weary, if you're burdened, if you're heavy laden, that invitation,
Yeah.
that invitation is there. He says, "Come to me." It's like we need to learn new patterns, right? Notice the pressure that we're under. Learn what's under the pressure. Do you know what I mean? What's the belief that's actually driving this, and then bring that to Jesus. And instead, he gives us. He says a yoke that's easy and a burden that's light. That we can go to him and we can receive it. So, and then you do that day after day, right? You repeat it over time, and that's what the walk looks like. And that's what enables you to be in places then where you can make decisions that seem mad to the world, because you already have what the world is looking for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
already have. It's already satisfied. So, yeah, we wrap up. We're just over the hour mark. So, but
Wow.
what would you say to somebody, like, how do they come to Jesus? Right, someone's listening right now and they're like, "That's me. I'm wrecked. I'm tired. I'm striving. I recognize maybe there is that whole mix of beliefs going on, needing to prove myself, and I'm just tired of it." What's it look like to actually
Yeah.
come to him?
At the very beginning for me, like, when I didn't know anything about church, I didn't know anything about Jesus other than what my friend Mick told me. But he said, no, ask, if God is real, ask him and he'll show you. And I shared it in another podcast. You can go searching that when he
Mm.
did show me that he was real, simple, but was profound and impacted my life forever. But it's like, a quickly story. I hated this man one time from my old life. We lived in a complex where there was vigilantism, and my family had run in battles with these people, and I hated one of them. I hated him. And when I became a Christian, I was when I see him, he'd say hello to me, and inside I'd say, I hate him. And one night I was going over to a prayer meeting, and he walked by me, he said hello, and I says, you know what, Lord, I hate him. And it was like a voice inside of me, heart, said to me, you can't hate him and love me. And I didn't know how to get away from that need, that drove me, that like drove me at times to murderous thoughts about this man. And anyway, I went up to the meeting that I was going to, and the scripture that was read out was Matthew 11, come to me all you who are wearied and heavy laden. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's the answer. Because I said, Lord, I don't know what to do with this. And I literally brought it, just like, Lord, I don't know what to do with this hatred. But can you do something with this need? Can you do something? You talk about a driver and a belief system. Like that was driving me demented.
Mm.
And like I just brought it to him like I'm doing this with my hands as if I have something, but it was that, like, Lord, here it is.
Hmm.
Like, Lord, I believe you're there. Will you show me? This is the stuff that I recognize. Like, I'm hearing that you can satisfy this. You're the answer to this. You're the one that will make everything make sense. So I ask you to show me. I ask you to come in and show me into my world, into my life. And I can guarantee, because of what he says in his word. Okay, the one giving the invitation, and he won't give an invitation that he's not able to meet.
Yeah.
So I would say, just that act of faith, that act of stepping, and everything. When you start believing this, right? Uh, Everything makes sense. Like everything, everything in the Bible makes sense when you step into that. No, Lord, I want to believe. Help me believe, or I do believe. You'll find things just starting to slot into place that makes whole sense of this world.
Well, that's a good place to wrap it up. Um, yeah, we'll catch you guys next week. Maybe we'll talk about that Manosphere thing. We managed to
Yeah,
have a watch of
yeah.
it or something. It could be a good topic to talk about. Here, will you close us in prayer, Nolly, as we wrap up, man?
Father, and we want to say that we love you, and we receive your rest,
Mm.
Lord. Believing is about receiving, and we receive what you say in your word, because it's true, and we elevate your word and exalt it over every feeling, thought, anxious thing, driver that's within us, and say, Lord, would you let your word meet that within us, and bring truth, and your truth will bring life. So I pray for every one of us, oh God. I just let the cease, let the striving cease. Let rest enter into our hearts right now as we're listening. Let a peace, Lord, your shalom, Lord, your wholeness and your completeness, Lord, just overwhelm us, oh God, as an act of grace, as an act of something given to us, Lord, that we can't attain in and of ourselves. So, Lord, we say we believe you want to do this, and we receive it in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Catch you
God
guys
bless you
next time.
guys.
God bless.
See, it's like I'm tired.